Today we're making this zipper pouch from the Bloomberry Panel. You'll notice that the bag I made as the example is not the fabric from the panel. If you were here for our first sew along, the designer of these bags gave a great idea that rather than using the pieces as one bag, she recommended using them to make two bags and then introducing a second fabric to do that. These are the two that you'll be cutting out, and then you'll also be cutting out up here. There are these two like little square patches. Those are for the zipper. You'll also need those. If you're going to be introducing a new fabric, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to cut this piece out, or whichever piece you're gonna use, pick the one you wanna use. And then you're gonna use this as your template to cut out this one. This is where I want you to be. You're either gonna have the two pieces, the two green ones, or you're gonna use this as a template to make your second piece. We will be quilting this one. I'm gonna show you the quilting I did. Only took a few minutes because I did these wider diagonals, but you can quilt it however you would like. Once you have these cut out, pick which one's gonna be your lining and pick which one is going to be your exterior fabric. Then you need to cut out your soft and stable or your batting, whatever it is that you're planning on using. This one, you don't need to cut it like perfectly to the size. What I would do with your soft and stable or your batting, whatever, cut it just slightly bigger than what you need because the extra room is helpful while we're quilting. And then after we've quilted it, we can trim it down to size perfectly. Working with batting can be tricky because sometimes your project can slide around a bit. So it's always nice to have a little extra around your edges just to, in case there's some of that moving around, that it doesn't affect your product. You only need your soft and stable for your exterior fabric. The interior fabric is where we are going to be putting the interfacing. I'm gonna cut out my interfacing and then we're gonna get going. I want you to follow the instructions of whatever your interfacing says. Mine says 8 to 10 seconds with firm pressure with some steam. I want you to follow whatever your instructions are, but let's get that interfacing adhered to your lining fabric. The next thing that we're going to need to iron is our little zipper tabs. What I want you to do is I want you to fold it in half and press it. All we're doing is taking our little square, folding it in half and pressing it. Now that this is pressed in half, what I want you to do is I want you to open it up, and we're now gonna fold the sides into that middle crease. We're kind of making like some bias tape or like a binding. Now you're gonna press that. This is gonna go to cover the ends of our zippers. You're not gonna need to like tuck in the ends of this at all. It's going to get sewn into the seams. We're done with the iron, so you can set that aside. What I want you to do is I want you to decide how you are going to quilt this. And I want you to mark those quilting lines. I'm gonna get out my Hera marker, which is like my favorite thing ever because it just leaves like an indent in the fabric. You can also use tailor's chalk. Whatever you wanna use that. I'm gonna follow these horizontal lines. I need to get my ruler out and I'm just going to make these marks. I'm gonna spend a few minutes doing this. There's one side, now I gotta go to the other side. I'm gonna be using a walking foot to do my quilting. You can use a regular foot, but I'll be using a walking foot. I just like how it makes it so easy and it kind of just keeps those layers of fabric together nicely. We will not be quilting the lining. We are just quilting the exterior fabric. So you can see here, I have my walking foot and then I also have my guide right here. The first thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna stitch just along the bottom here. So we're just gonna quilt. So you can see here, I'm using my guide. This guide is going along the stitch that I've already done. So it's really nice to have one of these because it's going to make the rest of this really consistent because I just have to follow that. So while I'm sewing right now, I'm not even really looking there. I'm looking here, just doing my best to follow it. And don't you love how I'm completely ignoring the marks that I made with my Hera marker? Yeah, super cute. But you know what? For those of you that don't have one of these, it was good to show you how to use the Hera marker. They want you to sew about 1/8 of an inch in all the way around, just to make sure it's like staying with the soft and stable and it doesn't like separate while you're sewing the bag together. It's just basically to help you sew this easier. When you're done quilting, go ahead, stitch around the edge about 1/8 of an inch. We will be cutting these apart from each other, so make sure that you also stitch down the bottom of both of these pieces. I'm going to take my walking foot off and I'm going to be putting my regular foot back on. You can see I've got all of my quilting lines on there, right? Cute. So we now need to separate this in its 2 pieces. So I'm going to be cutting here and here to get me 2 pieces. And then I'm going to carefully cut all the way around. Now what I'm going to do is these little squares right here, we need to cut those out. I'm going to just cut out these little squares from the corners. We're also going to be separating the lining. So you'll also be cutting the lining into 2 pieces that look just like this one. So if you used your own fabric, you can use one of these as your guide to cut this out properly. If you're using both of the fabrics from the panel, you are set. You can see here, I am just using this as a guide to cut out my secondary fabric since I'm not using the fabric from the panel. Make your zipper 7 1/4 long. Make sure that when you cut it, you do not cut off your pull. That would be real sad. The next step in this process, we're gonna be sewing on our like little tabs. So all you're gonna do is, remember how we fold it in half? And it's like this, that over the edge. And you're gonna have some hang off the sides. That's exactly how you want it. And you're just gonna stitch across this on both sides. That's all we're doing. So let me get my machine back out and we're gonna do this. When you sew this side, you're gonna have to do it with the zipper open. So I just want you to do your best to keep that those zipper tape pieces together and stitch across it just as best you can. And just like that, our zipper is ready to go for our bag. We're gonna take the front of our bag. We're gonna take our zipper that we've attached the zipper tag things to, and we are going to put those right sides together. I'm gonna have you just do your best to center it onto this. It's not supposed to go to the edges. So you're gonna center that, right sides together. So the top of this tape should line up with the top of your exterior fabric. And I want you to pin or clip that in place in the middle. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your lining fabric, pretty side down onto this. We are gonna be we're gonna be sandwiching it. It should be your exterior fabric, your zipper, and then your lining. So now what you're gonna do, you're gonna pin these all together like so, or clip, pin or clip. You have your lining, you have your zipper, you have your exterior fabric. I want you to sew across this whole thing. Just sew slightly in. You don't wanna like sew over your like zipper, like the pull parts, but sew just a little bit in. I'm probably gonna sew like, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch in, but sew across the whole thing. We're just gonna stitch all the way across this, and we did our best to line up the lining. And I am gonna back stitch. They say you don't really need to, but I'm gonna, cause why not? And now I'm just gonna follow along. So when I go to open this, if you open this and you fold it back, and now look, you have the front, here I'll move it this way. You have the front of your bag, and on this side you have the lining. Look how stinking cute. We need to top stitch this, and then we'll move on to the other side. While I'm sewing, I'm kind of pulling this bottom lining part so that way it's really like nice and snug here, and I'm not sewing it off like that. I want to make sure it's lined up well so I'm not sewing off kilter. So we've got the top stitching done on this. Look how nice. Second step is to basically do that exact same thing with the other side. So I have my front fabric. We're going to line up this zipper tape with the top of this. I'm going to pin in the middle just to kind of hold it in place for myself. And then I'm going to be putting my lining over the top. And now I'm just going to put clips over either side of my zipper. And we're just going to make sure that that zipper is hiked up enough that it's going to get caught in our seam. We have, and this one's kind of interesting because it goes over the whole thing, but you won't actually be sewing this when you sew these together because these are like hanging out down low. So you don't worry about that. We have our quilt sandwich here. I'm gonna go ahead and sew this side of my bag together. We're gonna sew straight across once again. And guys, this bag is almost done. Believe it or not, this bag is almost done. I'm gonna go ahead and snip off these little extra pieces of our zipper tab things. Make sure you get it on both sides. So it's gonna be on this side as well. So go flip through your little book of fabric and find all of those. Make sure you fold everything back nicely and go ahead and top stitch straight across. The next part of this bag, I want to give you a warning. Don't do what I did when I made this bag. At this point of the operation, I want you to have your zipper at least halfway open. I accidentally did this part with it closed, and it was not a good time trying to get it open. So make sure your zipper is a little bit open. It should all be stuck together though because of these tabs. What we're gonna do, we're going to put our lining sides together and we're going to be putting our front sides together. And we will be stitching all the way around this bad boy. You can skip these little corner pieces for now. I want you to sew from down here all the way up the sides, those sides. I want you to sew the bottom of your exterior fabric. So we're gonna sew that. The bottom of the lining fabric, you need to leave, a hole at the bottom so you can flip this right side out. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm just gonna throw a couple clips on, nothing major. Now I'm gonna sew along the bottom. And then on my lining one, I know I've said this a bunch, I'm just gonna say it again, only sew a little bit on each side, leave a spot in the middle so you can turn it. And really, I said that so many times for myself, because I for sure would do something like that. Before we flip this right side out, we are kind of at like the last step here. What we're gonna do, these little corner pieces, we're gonna like push these together. It's gonna hinge right there. It's gonna create this flat thing. I'm gonna pull that out flat and we're gonna stitch across. We're gonna do that on all 4 of them. And that's gonna create that corner, that little boxy corner. And you can trim this down if you like or clean it up. We're gonna flip this bag right side out now. I have that hole here in my lining. So we are gonna go ahead and turn her around. I'm just going to push all of my corners out. If you need to, grab your point turner, but we're just pushing all of our little edges out. Look how cute that gingham is. Now that those are turned, the last thing remaining to be done with this project is this lining right here. We need to stitch this hole shut. We're just gonna roll those unfinished edges. We're gonna roll them in just a smidge. We're gonna pull this taut and then we're gonna just stitch across this to shut that. We're gonna take that lining and we're gonna shove it into the bag. We're gonna push the corners out so it's nice. But look how cute it is on the inside of this bag. OMG, I freaking love it. I can zip it shut and look at my cute bag. Stinking cute. Now I have to think of what I want to put in these. I'm like, these would be perfect for little cords or little notions. I'm really excited that we got to do this together. Oh, it's so cute. Maybe I should put like some things in here and gift it to a friend. Oh, I'm gonna come clean up some of these little threads I have. These spring scissors are the freaking best thing ever. I love them. We have one sew along left of this panel to be done. If anyone has any questions, feel free to message me and I will do my best to get back to you. I try really hard to stay on top of like DMs and comments that have questions in them. I do try really hard. So let me know if you have any questions. But thanks so much for joining us on our live tonight and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.